Caspian Sea, 6:30 on a Saturday morning. A cargo ship is sailing 180 kilometers from the Russian port of Astrakhan when 4 Ukrainian drones appear on the horizon and turn it into a ball of fire. Russian sailors who approached the burning hull found no one to rescue. One of them filmed everything and said he thought it was a military ship. He got closer and was shocked. One crew member lost his life. Several were injured, but there's a detail in this story that changes everything. The ship was Iranian. For the first time in this entire war, Ukraine attacked Iran. In less than 24 hours, the Iranian government responded. The foreign minister declared that this cannot go unanswered, and a former Iranian parliamentarian put the message in geographic terms. The response, he said, should be carried out in the Black Sea. The Black Sea is Ukraine's backyard. That's where the Ukrainian ports are. The Ukrainian ships, the grain route that keeps the country's economy afloat. The message was clear. You hit us in our sea, we hit you in yours. And he went further. He said that Iran should lift its 2,000-kilometer limit on ballistic missiles, a limit that Iran itself imposed. And abandoning that limit means only one thing: to put Ukraine within range. But here's what doesn't add up in this story. Ukraine knew this was coming. They knew they were provoking the country with the largest missile arsenal in the Middle East. A country that is already facing the United States and Israel at the same time, and still attacked anyway. It wasn't desperation, it was a calculated move. And when you understand what Ukraine calculated, you'll understand why this might be one of the coldest moves in this entire war. To understand the calculation, first you need to understand the place. Because the Caspian Sea is not just any sea. It's the largest enclosed body of water in the world, surrounded by only 5 countries: Russia, Iran, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan. Pay close attention to what this means. No Western Navy can enter there, no American aircraft carrier, no European frigate, no patrol from the Western Military Alliance. It's a sea with no outlet to the ocean, meaning no oversight from anyone outside. For Russia and Iran, 2 countries drowning in sanctions, that's not just a geographic detail. It's a gift. You probably imagine that weapons crossing between these 2 countries travel in secret, dodging international patrols, right? Wrong. They cross a sea where no one can go after them. Ali? There, the ships only need to hide from one thing: satellites. And it was exactly in this sea, the theoretically most protected place on the planet for this kind of business, that the Ukrainian drones appeared. In the early hours of that Saturday, residents filmed from atop the buildings as an orange glow rose from the other side of the water, sending incandescent fragments arcing through the air. There's the classic signature of a secondary detonation, when something explosive or flammable inside the target also goes up in the air. The Iranian government rushed to present its version. It released footage taken aboard the ship that was hit, a cargo ship called Anna, showing the hold loaded with coils of steel sheet. They said it was carrying 2,000 tons of iron, that it was a civilian cargo, not military, and that it wasn't dangerous. According to the Iranian version, the documents completely contradict President Zelensky's claim. And Ukraine? Well, Ukraine says the opposite. For them, that ship was part of an operation that had to stay in the shadows. And this is where the story really opens up, because, according to the Ukrainian security service, the targets that night were not chosen at random. 2 of the ships that were hit The Port Olya II and the Begay had already been sanctioned by the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Ukraine itself. And their history tells a story that few people know. These ships are part of what analysts call the Ghost Fleet. Vessels that turn off their transponders, the devices that transmit the position of each ship in the world and simply disappear from the map. They usually go dark when they're near three ports: Astrakhan on the Russian side and Anzali and Amirabad on the Iranian side. They disappear carrying cargo in one country and reappear empty in the other. Do you know what crosses that invisible corridor? The numbers gathered by researchers and intelligence services are jaw-dropping. Just in the year 2023, more than 300,000 artillery shells and about 1 million rounds of ammunition crossed the Caspian from Iran to Russia. Starting in 2024, more than 400 Shahed drones took the same route. Begay, according to Ukrainian intelligence, was carrying ammunition, vests, and helmets, and this corridor just keeps growing. It's 40% shorter than the route through the Suez Canal and up to 30% cheaper. And the forecast is that the volume between the two countries will double this year, reaching 10 million tons. Do you see what happened? Ukraine didn't attack a ship. It attacked the artery that feeds the war machine, which has been sending drones into its cities for 4 years. And if this kind of analysis helps you see what's behind the headline, subscribe to the channel because this story is just getting started. Have you ever stopped to think, why did Ukraine decide to take this risk? Why is cutting off Russian supplies one thing, but the death of an Iranian sailor and Iran's fury something completely different? Does that justify the risk? To answer that, you need to look at this war through the eyes of a Ukrainian. Because for Ukraine, Iran is not a neutral country that was attacked out of nowhere. Since 2022, the Iranian government has been supplying Russia with Shahed drones. Those explosive triangular-winged drones that buzz over Ukrainian cities almost every night, hunting residential buildings and power plants. Thousands of them have already struck the country. And there's a hidden irony in this story that almost no one notices. In October 2022, at the height of the first Shahed attacks, Ukraine began to develop its own response. A long-range drone called Lyudi, which in Ukrainian means fierce. A propeller-driven drone guided by satellite, with a range that now exceeds 1,700 kilometers and a warhead of up to 75 kilograms. It costs about $200,000 per unit. And guess which weapon probably crossed the Caspian sky that Saturday? Yes, the very one. The drone that was born because of the Shahed now sinks the ships carrying Shahed drones. From the Ukrainian point of view, no one started a new war. They just gave back the war that already existed. But that's only half of the equation. The other half is much more explosive, because the important question is not what Iran does for Russia. It's what Russia has been doing for Iran. And the answer started to appear in March, when Israeli fighter jets did something unprecedented. They bombed the port of Bandar Anzali on Iran's northern coast, on the Caspian Sea. The images released by Israeli forces show Iranian Navy missile boats disappearing in balls of fire, one by one, and then the command centers on the dock being dismantled impact by impact. It was the first time in history that the Iranian coast of the Caspian had become a target. Israel saw in it what Ukraine would see 4 months later. That corridor was no longer just used to arm Russia. The flow had reversed. After Russia nationalized the Shahed drone production in 2023, manufacturing the drones at home under an Iranian license, it stopped being just a customer. According to American authorities now, it is Russia that sends drone components to Iran through the Caspian Sea, helping the regime replenish the arsenal it has been losing in the war against the Americans and Israelis. And the British press reports something even more serious. Russia is reportedly installing jet engines on the Shahed drones and sending these upgraded versions back to Iran to be used against the United States. The former American ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor, described this closed loop in a recent interview. The Iranians, he said, were using against the Americans and their allies the same drones they had supplied to the Russians.
All of that led to some of the long-range drones. The Iran war demonstrated that the Iranians were using their own drones, Shahed drones, which they had given to the Russians, but the Iranians were using these drones against our allies and us. And our allies in the Gulf went to Ukraine.
The Gulf allies then sought out the world's top experts in shooting down Shahed drones, Ukraine. And Ukrainian soldiers went to the Middle East to teach them how to hunt down the Iranian drone. But Taylor revealed more. The Russians, according to him, provided Iran with military intelligence about the location of American forces.
Ukraine said, "We'll help you. We'll help you knock down, defend against these drones coming from Iran." The other thing, by the way, the Russians provided Iran with military intelligence on where the U.S. forces were, and the Iranians went after that.
This is not a vague accusation. The Ukrainian government claims to have recorded the pattern. Russian satellites photographed the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia 3 times in 5 days. The day after the third photo, Iranian missiles hit the base and wounded American service members. The base had already been hammered for weeks. And in July, according to the Ukrainian assessment, the pattern repeated itself. 4 bases with a US presence, 2 in Bahrain, 1 in Jordan, and 1 in Kuwait, came under the watch of Russian satellites days before new attacks. 18 Americans have already lost their lives in this war against Iran. And now, pay attention to what happened next, because this seems like something out of a movie script. Friday night, Oval Office. A reporter asks the American president why he says that Russia is not helping Iran, even though his own Secretary of War says the opposite. Trump responds by saying that Putin gave him his word. He said, "I trust them. I don't think they want to let me down.
I trust them."
Hours later, in the early hours of Saturday, Ukrainian drones set the Caspian corridor on fire. And on the same Saturday, the Ukrainian president publishes a dossier based on satellite imagery. As you can see, Ukraine didn't choose that ship by chance. And they didn't choose that week by chance either. 3 days after the attack, the Ukrainian president sat down with Trump at the White House, and the message he brought with him was just one. While you take them at their word, look at what's crossing that sea. That's the calculation. But every calculation has a price. And the price here has a name: Iran's response. The Iranian foreign minister didn't just accuse Ukraine. He accused Israel of being behind the attack, of using Ukraine to drag Europe into the war without presenting any evidence of it. The spokesperson for the Iranian Parliament's Security Commission called President Zelensky a clown and argued that Iran should recognize the occupied regions of Ukraine as Russian territory. And channels linked to the regime openly talk about ballistic missiles. it seemed like the prelude to an attack. But look closely at the position Iran is in now. In the south, the American Navy is tightening its grip on the Strait of Hormuz after 13 consecutive nights of bombings. In the north, the only coastline that was still safe has just become a war zone. The 4 Iranian ports on the Caspian operate day and night, bringing in wheat, corn, and oil, because that route doesn't just carry weapons, it carries the food that sustains the regime under sanctions. Responding to Ukraine in this scenario means opening a third front without having closed the first 2. But that's exactly what makes this moment so dangerous. A country cornered like Iran, with wounded pride and an arsenal of thousands of missiles, doesn't usually make predictable decisions. That invisible wall that separated the war in Europe from the war in the Middle East has fallen. And it wasn't a missile that brought it down, it was a cargo ship, sinking into a sea that didn't appear on any war map. Iran arms Russia against Ukraine. Russia, according to the Ukrainians and Americans, guides and rearms Iran against America. And Ukraine, the country that was just the victim in this story, now chooses targets 1,000 kilometers from home in a conflict that, officially, isn't even its own. The truth is that wars no longer stay neatly contained, and if the Iranian promise turns into real missiles, what started with a ship in the Caspian could be remembered as the day when the 2 fires became one. This story is far from over, and every new chapter will be covered here, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll know when the next move happens. And answer me in the comments. In your view, are we seeing the beginning of just one war, or are there still 2 separate wars? Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.